What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Josh Helm here. Today, we're answering your number one question. How much does it cost to build a Barndominium? So we're in the Texas area. We're going to be covering that in depth. I hope you'll stay tuned as we cover the real cost of building a Texas Best Barndominium in 2025. Hope you enjoy this video. Let's get it going. Everybody's always asking, how much does it cost? Why doesn't this guy ever want to share the price? You know, we're just keeping all this information from you. And it's not really so much that. It's a real complicated question because there's a lot of factors to understand about cost. And that has changed over the years too. I think the last time we did this particular subject video was like 2021, even though we did do maybe a live or something like that where we talked about it maybe last year. We're going to cover what is different, what has changed, how have we improved some of our processes as well, and what is even included. But we're going to cover the overview of what it costs square footage wise. We're also going to cover what's included in that standard cost. We're going to talk about, maybe even share briefly, how regional cost variations can be here in the state of Texas in certain areas. We're going to cover some cost influencing factors of what is determining cost. And then we're going to cover budget saving strategies. We'll go to some hidden cost and share with you what to plan for and what to look for hidden cost, as well as discuss ROI and long-term values, what you can expect from that. And then we'll wrap it up giving you some real information that I feel like can really put your feet on path to building a barndominium. Let's get right into it right away. You guys, if you've been following us for some length of time, you can see we're building several different ways. We build primarily what's called a hybrid steel frame barndominium, which is a combination of steel frame and wood frame. We'll get into a little bit more of that, what we think might be an upgrade as opposed to what maybe other people build barndominiums with. But this is exclusively what it costs for Texas Best to build a barndominium in our build radius. What is our build radius? Our build radius is about 100 miles from Red Oak, Texas, and that includes doing a shell only. We try to keep it a little bit closer in for doing a turnkey build, so you guys hear us talk about all that all the time. We're going to get into the details of what is a turnkey versus a shell only. We'll cover that as well as we can with the length of time that we have here. Right off the bat, to give you a brief overview of current 2025 cost ranges, you can expect to spend for living square footage, heated and cooled, around $180 to $200 a square foot. That is for your heated and cooled living square footage. This is where the question comes into play. How does that compare to traditional homes? Well, traditional homes are going to have everything except for maybe trading your brick and mortars. We might have some stone involved, but that's extra cost items. Typically, we're using like all steel siding on the outside. And you'll have, some of these finishes that you can do that are special. But typically what I like to say is when you're building a barndominium, you're going to trade those maybe brick and mortar for efficiencies as far as building with Texas Best. But comparatively, I want to say that traditional homes can cost around, say, $240 per square foot. But that's including the land. So once you kind of take the land out of the equation, you might be somewhere comparably to what it would cost to build a conventional home. Well, people say, well, why would I want to build a barndominium if it's going to be similar price to a traditional home? Well, those are factors that you have to weigh out for yourself. We'll try to get into some of those details a little bit here, but when it comes to cost it is relatively similar. I like to say it like this: probably 80% of what we are building has everything and more than what a conventional frame home does. We have engineered foundation, we have 2x6 studded exterior walls, so thicker wall systems that allow for more insulation values. We use the zip system, which has air qualities for air barrier and additional flashing methods that we use that are more superior than what you would find, say, in a builder grade traditional home. So some of these things are upgraded in some regard than what you could get in your maybe local subdivision. So also there's some hybrid qualities where we go to the shop areas where we have different abilities to be able to do some free spans and to cover more territory more affordably that you could do in a conventional frame. Let's just cover what's included in our standard finishes for that $180 to $200 a square foot. And I'll go ahead and tell you this, not only now that is just for living square footage. If you're doing porches, that's $50 to $60 a square foot. If you're doing shop areas, that can be in the $50 to $60 range per square foot. So that kind of gives you some nuts and bolts of how we go about configuring price. You're getting your shell structure cost, your steel frame, roofing, exterior walls. You got all of the interior turnkey finish all the way on the inside. It includes everything on the inside of the structure that is finished grade, with the exception of appliances on the inside. On the outside, we go all the way. We have the meter base, everything ready to receive power, everything ready to receive water, but it does stop short of all the utilities. It does include a septic system. Now, there's a couple other things that I need to share with you on some other prices. Number one, we've started building a different style of build. It's called a post frame barndominium, rapid post frame. You guys might have seen our wood house project where we shared in depth details about some of the advantages of building that way. It does give us some potential cost saving benefits as well, which if you follow along, we'll be sharing more about that in the future. But in some of the recent builds that we have going, it did give us a direct advantage to be able to get our zip system up over the roof areas. With that in mind, one thing that we have added in the recent year is to do a shell-only barndominium. So the shell-only barndominium will include everything on the exterior, but will stop short just at mechanicals on the inside. So you will have all your exterior finishes done, windows installed, doors installed, engineered foundation, underground plumbing is done, and then you have your interior framing done on the inside too. That shell-only price is roughly $80 to $100 a square foot. Why is that significant? Why is that important? Because it does kind of give you up to a shell price idea of how that cost is being built. So it's about 50% of the cost is the shell, and then the rest goes for the interior finishes. Now, another thing that is excluded on the exterior would be like your landscaping. That's not included. Driveways. We can do these kind of things. It's just not included. Irrigation, because there's variables. Utilities from the road to the house, not included in our standard cost, but it can be added. So these are things that are some variable costs when it comes to what's included. On the finish out on the inside of our turnkey builds, we use granite countertops, custom cabinets. When I say custom, I mean a cabinet builder is building them to spec and size based on what's on the plans. And we have a high quality grade wood that we're using, whether it's stain grade or paint grade. You'll see us use knotty alder, red oak, a lot of different types of wood that we use. All that standard cost. And then we have your standard trim package, which can be a farm style finish with either 3.5-inch base trim or some of these kind of things. And then our floor finishes, what's standard is stained concrete or like an LVP. But we don't have like any tile figured for flooring. Where tile is included is for your showers. We do full surface tiled showers on the floor and all the walls all the way up to the ceiling. So a really nice package there. It's a really good look. So we feel like that our standard package is a really nice package for a build. So this is kind of a starting point. Now, let's talk about regional costs can vary in Texas because we're in the DFW market. The North Texas area, North and Central Texas, I would say, is where we're primarily building. These costs might significantly change if you go down into the, say, Austin and Hill Country area, where prices will increase and those areas could roughly run, however many more dollars per square foot. And availability of materials, as well as there's some special things that you might have to do in those areas, like your site work is going to be a little more involved because you got more rock. There's things based on the terrain. It's not flat land like we have a lot of flatter land in this area. They have more rocky and hills. So people like, how much does it cost? Well, where are you at? If you're in, New York or North Carolina or some of these other territories or Florida or California, the pricing in Texas is really irrelevant to unless you're moving here. And that's what this video is for. If you're looking to relocate to our area and our build radius, this is what it would cost. For other regions, other areas, it's going to cost a little bit different. So let's move on to what are some cost influencing factors? This is a good question. Size is the biggest impact on cost. Square footage is one thing that I've always said over the years is that square footage rules the day. We pay electricians based on square footage, sheetrock based on square footage, flooring. All these kind of things are determined by square footage, concrete. Everything on the inside of the home. Plumbing is a little bit different. Sometimes it's a little more fixture based on what's there in the build. But square footage really does control a large amount of the cost. The bigger it is, the more expensive it costs, obviously. That's one big factor. Another thing is obviously your material selections and the quality of selections that you make. It does cost more money to go from say level 1 granite to a quartz countertop. It's a little bit more money to go up at every level. And so these things can sway your cost. So you have to really think about that up front, knowing, these are some non-negotiables. These are some things that I want included in my bid. Otherwise, you're going to have change orders along the way. And some other things that can sway your cost is like if you have a lot of masonry in your design, like stone wainscotings on the outside. It's really nice to have the stone, but it does add quite a bit of cost. One of the most economical, affordable things to use on your siding is this R-panel style metal, which you see so commonly used on Barndominiums. Now, when you start going to other accenting panels that maybe they're board and batten look, but still metal, this does add quite a bit of cost to it. If you go to a standing seam roof, well, you got to change some of your framing methods up sometimes, and you have to have the extra cost of the roof to go to a standing seam. So there's some circumstances based on your selections that could definitely add cost. Flooring, there's so much you can do with flooring. You could totally go hog wild on your cabinets. You can do a lot of different things there with customizations in your cabinet packages. So these are some things that can really influence your cost when it comes to specifics. Now let's move on to something that's a little more to your benefit. Budget saving strategies. What are some things that you can do to save? Well, if you are of the mindset where you can do some of the build yourself, in the state of Texas, you do have to have an assigned, say, general contractor. But there are some people that are taking advantage of our shell only option. So the shell only is a good advantage for a DIYer. Let's say you just want Texas Best to come in and do what they do best, build their structure, do the foundation, do all the exterior, the framing, all the way up to the interior framing. That's what's included in a shell only. Then that point on, you can do your mechanicals and insulation, cabinets, sheetrock, tape flow, texture painting, and sort of DIY the rest of it at the end. This might be a way that you could save some money. I do put cautionary things out there for people to say, hey, if this is not something you're used to doing, I wouldn't do it with your house. Let's not pick that to learn with, because it's something that is your main investment in your life. And so you want to make sure that you can finish and finish it well. Otherwise, if you're paying to start, stop, and then get somebody else to come pick up something halfway, it could cost you quite a bit more. Moving through this, additionally, you could have some budget saving strategies by substituting certain materials without sacrificing quality. Some of these choices might be going to that R panel as opposed to, say, board and batten, or maybe doing what we call a phased building approach. I've had certain clients that we've done work with that say, hey, I can't pay to do the finished out shop or the added living areas that I want to do. So maybe we do make this a parking area for the moment. You can actually do that because our steel structure has an all engineered foundation under it. I could change the living footprint when it comes to the framing later, if need be. So I've had people just kind of build a cover over this additional area. So you're doing more of like your shop or porch finish price instead of doing the shell only price that has all the interior framing or the $180 to $200 a square foot for the living quarters. And it gives you a lot of versatility where if you wanted to add out on the inside of that covered area later, you could easily do that and still have this really impeccable foundation. So that is all part of one system because it was all poured at one time during the monolithic pour. So that is a big advantage, I think, if you wanted to do some phased building. One other thing I wanted to mention is some hidden costs that you should plan for that maybe you're not thinking about when you're looking to build. Number one would be like your site preparation, your land development. What is the slopes of that? That could incur additional costs if you're having to build up really big on one side. I've had certain builds where we've had to add 6 or 7 foot of dirt, and we have to make decisions, or can we use some of the dirt that's on site? We end up having to trade some of our typical pad work for maybe more labor and equipment work. Those are some things that have to get analyzed while we're there. Also, your utility connections on your rural properties, like your power, water. Do you have to dig a well? Do you have accessibility to power to where it can easily be navigated? Are you going to want to have gas on property like propane? These are some additional costs. Lastly, I want to talk about long-term value and return on investment. We're leaving you with a highly efficient home that is airtight, that is keeping the most of its heated and cooled air in there, conserving energy as best as possible. We're going to sort of guide you through that, give you recommendations on where we think maybe, hey, you should probably do a dehumidifier, maybe a ERV, a variable speed unit for HVAC, but you're starting with a really good, tight, efficient home. And that's the foundation really for getting started down the right path, because energy efficiency is going to help you throughout the cost of this build when it comes to longevity. You want to make sure you have a decent window package, door package, insulation on the interior walls and all of the covering envelope that you're doing throughout. And then one thing that you're going to be well pleased with, I feel, is the maintenance cost compared to what you would do in a traditional home. So this is one thing that I feel like the Barndominium just supersedes anything that you could get in traditional. You don't have painted soffits, you don't have painted fascias, you don't have to worry about those rotting away. all this stuff, once it's there, it's there. It stays. That's the staying power of a barndominium, is low maintenance, durability, energy efficiency, and from a resale value standpoint, really there should be no marks against you on a build like this with us, because there's nothing less than on the interior that you would do in a traditional home. So we have all the same, but better sometimes finishes that you would have in a builder grade home. So granite countertops, all of these finishes that we discussed here in this video. So from resale, it should come up in a good margin based on whatever's going on in the economy. So those are some really good things to, I think, look to and look for in what you're looking to gain out of your build. Now, you can improve things through that, depending on your finish schedule, the highest quality materials that you want to use. You can totally go high end on a build, and it's the sky is the limit really when it comes to that. So that's up to you. That's up to your personality. The home itself is going to have your characteristics when it's all said and done. They really focused on energy efficiency. They really focused on air tightness. They really focused on, having this full air barrier throughout, and having a variable speed HVAC, and, and air quality of the home, having dehumidifiers. So those are all the personalities and the customizations that you will choose, which can be indicative of how much it's going to cost. So as we're coming to a close here, let me tell you guys about some resources that you absolutely should take advantage of. If you guys are not familiar with our Barndo Cost Calculator, we have a designated place on our site called barndoquote.com, where you can go and get an exact quote for something specific. Let's say you found a plan online somewhere and you wanted to kind of pan that out. This is a resource that you could use. Another thing I will say, if you go to our link tree, we have added a pre-planning strategy that you can download from there that has a whole list of questions and things like that you can ask. And then we additionally have our plans that are available for barndominiums at bestbarndoplans.com. This is where you could maybe choose a home plan that you've seen us build already. Maybe you're going to build in another area and you're interested in using one of our plans. This is a place where you could maybe purchase that plan and build it somewhere else. Check all these resources out. They're very important, could be very useful to you in the process as you're planning to build your barndominium. We appreciate you guys following along. If you guys haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do that now. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. I'm Josh Helm, wishing you all the best. Thanks for watching Texas Best.